1. I've got to be honest with you. Something's not adding up in this El Camino listing. The 1965 El Camino never came with a 4-cylinder engine or front-wheel drive. These beauties packed V8S, or occasionally V6S, and were rear-wheel drive. That's part of what made them such iconic vehicles. While the $28,500 asking price would be reasonable for a well-restored 65 El Camino, I'm concerned about the accuracy of this listing. The original El Caminos were muscle car pickup hybrids that shared platforms with the Chevelle, and they definitely weren't FWD. Now, the seller mentions some positive points: new paint, upgraded interior, new starter and carburetor, with only 27,000 miles showing. The clean title is good news too, but given the major discrepancies in the basic specifications, I'd strongly recommend any potential buyers to inspect this vehicle in person and verify all the details. If you're in the market for a genuine 65 El Camino, they're fantastic vehicles when properly represented, combining classic muscle car styling with practical utility. Just make sure you're getting what's actually advertised. Let me know if you want me to break down what a genuine 65 El Camino should have under the hood. 2. Let me tell you about this interesting 1956 Ford F100 I just spotted. This isn't your typical Ford purist build. We're looking at a classic Ford body with Chevy power under the hood, which is actually a pretty popular swap in the hot rod community. The seller's got a 396 big block Chevy engine in there, paired with an automatic transmission, which should make this truck a real powerhouse. The asking price of $29,500 is in the ballpark for a well-done F100, especially with the upgrades mentioned. What's really catching my eye here is the recent interior work and the addition of power steering and power brakes. These are fantastic modern conveniences that make these old trucks much more enjoyable to drive daily. The odometer shows 10,000 miles, which is likely since the rebuild or restoration, not original miles. The clean title and green paint, a classic color for these trucks, add to the appeal. With the dual exhaust system, I bet this thing has that perfect vintage truck rumble. Just remember, if you're a Ford purist, this might not be your cup of tea with that Chevy heart transplant. But if you're looking for a solid classic truck with some serious power and modern driving conveniences, this could be worth checking out. As always, I'd recommend a personal inspection to verify everything's as described. 3. Let's be completely honest about this 1985 Chevy Silverado listing. We're looking at a project truck that needs some serious work. At $2,500, you're basically buying a roller with potential, as the seller straight up tells us there's no engine or transmission currently installed. Though they mention it's supposed to have a 350 V8 and a 4-speed manual setup, those components need to be sourced and installed. The fair condition rating is probably generous here, given the missing drivetrain. The broken odometer means we have no idea of the actual mileage, which is pretty common for these old trucks. At least it comes with a clean title, which is always a plus when dealing with project vehicles. For $2,500, this could be a decent starting point if you've got the skills, tools, and a spare 354-speed combo lying around. These square-body Chevys have a strong following, and parts are generally easy to find. But let's be real. You're looking at significant time and money investment to get this truck roadworthy. If you're mechanically inclined and looking for a project, this might be worth checking out. But if you need something to drive home today, you'll want to keep looking. No sugarcoating here. This is a project truck that needs a lot of love. 4. Let me tell you about this interesting 1971 Chevy K10 that's caught my attention. This isn't your typical all-original Survivor. It's had some thoughtful modern upgrades that make it more practical for today's driving. The seller is being refreshingly honest about everything, which I really appreciate. The truck underwent a frame-off rebuild back in 2004, and they've upgraded it with a 97 Vortec 350 engine and a 4L60E transmission from a 3/4-ton donor. That's a solid, reliable combination that'll give you modern drivability. With about 40,000 miles on this drivetrain setup, it's nicely broken in but not worn out. Some cool features include the NP208 transfer case and Lock-Right differentials front and rear. This thing means business off-road. The aftermarket AC is a nice touch for comfort, and the 85 steering column upgrade improves the driving experience. The woodbed floor might need attention depending on its condition, but that's an easy fix. Now let's talk about the honest bits. The 20-year-old paint is peeling, and there are some rust patches to address. The odometer has rolled over, but the seller's been tracking their mileage, 42,479 miles since the rebuild. At $22,500, you're getting a modernized classic K10 that's been thoughtfully built and maintained. Sure, it needs some cosmetic love, but mechanically, it seems solid. These trucks have been climbing in value, and finding one with documented history and honest disclosure like this is refreshing. 5. Let me tell you about this incredibly detailed 1960 Ford F100 listing that's really caught my eye. At $12,500, this seems like a pretty solid deal for what you're getting. The seller has provided an impressively thorough breakdown of everything that's been done to this truck, and I love that kind of transparency. This is a true survivor, with its original 292 V8 and rare Ford Cruise-O-Matic transmission, both still doing their job. The engine was rebuilt 5,000 miles ago, which is a huge plus. What's really impressive is the amount of mechanical work that's been done. New gas tank, fuel lines, rebuilt original Holley carb, electronic fuel pump with a dash switch, and a complete ignition system refresh. The safety upgrades are substantial. Front disc brake conversion with a dual master cylinder, new brake lines, new shocks, and tie rods. They've even added modern 3-point seat belts, which is a thoughtful safety touch. The seller's been honest about it needing a little TLC to be a full-time daily driver, but they've been using it for short trips around the golf course. The cab has been treated with Raptor coating, and there's some nice custom touches like the under-dash lights, engine compartment lighting, and hidden fog lights. What's particularly appealing is that while it's been modernized in some ways, AM/FM stereo, CB radio, they've kept the original character intact. The lunar green paint still has that classic look, and they're even including extra paint for touch-ups. 6. Let me tell you about this honest-to-goodness 1968 Ford F250 that's caught my attention. At $7,000, we're looking at a pretty fair deal for a classic workhorse that's actually being used as intended. The seller's straightforward approach is refreshing. This isn't a show truck, but a genuine driver that's still putting in the work. What's really impressive is that this old Ford is regularly making 60-plus mile commutes without issues. That's a strong testament to these old trucks' reliability. It's wearing its original Holley green paint, which, while showing its age and some battle scars, still cleans up well according to the seller. Recent maintenance includes new shocks, air cleaner, armrest replacements, and battery cables. It's rolling on Nitto all-terrain tires with American racing wheels. Bonus points for including the original Steelies. The 4-speed manual transmission is a desirable feature for these classics. The seller's even throwing in some uninstalled goodies, a new headliner and front leveling spacers. At 51,620 miles showing, it's either rolled over or original, but with these old trucks, it's more about condition than mileage. For $7,000, you're getting a solid running and driving classic F250 that's not afraid to work. Sure, it's got some bumps and bruises, but that just adds character to a truck that's lived an honest life. If you're looking for a classic truck you can actually use rather than just show, this could be your ticket. 7. Let me tell you about this sweet 1970 GMC C10 stepside that's got my attention. At $25,000, we're looking at a thoughtfully modified classic that's been built to be actually driven and enjoyed. The seller's transparency about it being not a show truck but still a good-looking ride is refreshingly honest. This C10's got some serious upgrades under the hood. The 350 small block has recently received a complete top-end refresh with quality Edelbrock components, including a new Performer intake, 1406 carb, and elite valve covers. The cooling system's been completely modernized with an aluminum radiator and electric fan setup. That's peace of mind right there. The suspension and handling upgrades are impressive. CPP power steering, disc brake conversion, and a well-thought-out lowering setup with drop spindles and Fox Ride Tech shocks. The 700 R4 transmission is a great upgrade for modern driving, paired with 3.73 gears out back. Inside, you've got some nice creature comforts with the tilt column, wood grain wheel, Bluetooth stereo, and freshly reupholstered bench seat. The paint's 4.5 years old and honestly rated at 8.5/10 with some expected rock chips. That's just part of actually driving these trucks. What's really interesting is the optional LS3 crate motor and 4L60 transmission available for additional cost. That could take this truck to a whole new level. 8. Let's talk about this 1971 Chevy C20 that's up for grabs at $8,000. I've got to be honest, the seller's description is pretty minimal here, which always makes me a bit cautious. They're telling us it runs and drives great and has good paint, but without more details, you'll definitely want to inspect this one carefully. The C20 is the 3/4-ton version of Chevy's iconic pickup line, and these are generally robust, dependable trucks. The odometer shows 56,000 miles but has rolled over, so we're dealing with an unknown actual mileage here. Pretty common for these old workhorses. At $8,000, you're in the ballpark for a running, driving C20 from this era. But with such a brief description, you'll want to check all the usual trouble spots: frame rust, cab corners, floor pans, and mechanical condition. These trucks typically came with either a 350 or 402 V8 paired with an automatic transmission. But we don't even know which powertrain this one's running. This could be a decent buy if everything checks out in person. But with such limited information, you'll want to do your homework and inspect thoroughly. Remember, sometimes what's not mentioned in the ad is as important as what is. 9. Let me tell you about this interesting 1972 Chevy K5 Blazer that's catching attention at $16,000 firm. This one's got some serious potential, but let's be straight up about what you're getting here. It's not quite ready to hit the trails just yet. The good news first, it's wearing its original war bonnet yellow paint, and the seller claims it's almost completely rust-free, except for some small holes in the rockers. That's pretty impressive for a 50-year-old off-roader. The 3/4-ton running gear and Dana 44 with disc brakes are solid upgrades that'll handle serious off-road duty. Now, here's where you need to pay attention. The 396 big block is complete but needs 2 valve springs and is missing a carburetor. So you're not driving this home without some work. However, the seller's offering a never-fired ZZ3 crate engine for an additional $2,000, which could be an interesting option if you're planning a rebuild anyway. The 85,000 miles showing could be original given the condition described, and the clean title is always a plus. The fact that it comes with extra parts is a nice bonus for a project vehicle. 10. Let me tell you about this sweet 1970 C10 stepside that's up for $23,000. The seller's being refreshingly honest about why they're selling. That 4-speed manual transmission isn't playing nice with their artificial knees, and I really appreciate that kind of straightforward explanation. This truck's got some serious credentials. It's sporting a fresh 350 V8 with only about 1,100 miles on it, paired with that 4-speed manual transmission. The seller's confidence in the truck is backed up by the fact they drove it 7 hours from New Mexico to Arizona without any issues. That's the kind of real-world test we love to hear about. The body looks clean, and while it doesn't have AC currently, the seller mentions having most of the components. Those new tires are always a plus, too. The odometer has rolled over, but with these classics, it's more about condition and recent work than original miles. What's particularly appealing here is that this isn't some trailer queen. It's a properly sorted driver that's actually being used as intended. The 4-speed manual and 350 combo makes this a fast truck, according to the seller, and these stepsides are some of the best-looking classics out there. At $23,000, you're getting a well-maintained classic with a fresh engine that's proven itself on long-distance drives. Just remember, if you're not comfortable with a manual transmission, this might not be your truck. But for someone who loves rowing their own gears, this could be a real gem. 11. Let me tell you about this interesting 1978 El Camino that's on the market for $15,000. This one's got some recent updates that make it pretty appealing. The Porsche gray paint and black interior were both refreshed in 2020, which gives this classic a modern, sophisticated look. Under the hood, you're getting the reliable 350 Chevy V8 with its factory 4-barrel carb setup. These motors are bulletproof when maintained properly, and finding one with the original carb setup is always nice. The 75,000 miles showing could be reasonable for a vehicle of this age. The sellers added some practical upgrades. The rebuilt suspension should give it a proper ride, and the bedliner is a smart addition that'll protect the cargo area. You're also getting some nice creature comforts with the AC and power steering, plus those comfy bucket seats. At $15,000, you're in the ballpark for a well-maintained El Camino from this era, especially with the recent paint and interior work. These vehicles are unique, combining the comfort of a Malibu with pickup truck utility, and they're gaining popularity among collectors. If you're looking for a practical classic that stands out from the crowd, this could be worth checking out. It's got the right mix of updates while keeping the original character intact. 12. Let's talk about this 1973 Ford F-350 that's up for $13,500. The seller's keeping it pretty brief, but there are some solid points to discuss here. These old one-ton Fords are serious workhorses, and this one's packing the robust 390 V8 paired with an automatic transmission, a powertrain combo known for its reliability and pulling power. With 78,000 miles showing, it's relatively low mileage for a heavy-duty truck of this vintage. The seller mentions the body is straight with very little rust, which is pretty impressive for a 50-year-old work truck. Having functional trailer brakes is a big plus if you're planning to put this truck to work. What makes these 73 F-350s interesting is they're from the last year of this body style before Ford's major redesign in 1974. The 390 engine is a torque monster that's well suited for heavy hauling, and parts are still readily available. At $13,500, you're in the market for a solid classic work truck that could either be preserved as a collector piece or put right back to work. The minimal rust and straight body are definitely selling points, though you'll probably want to inspect those rust spots carefully to confirm the extent. 13. Let me tell you about this unique 1960 GMC 4X4 short bed that's caught my attention at $12,500. This isn't your everyday classic truck. We're looking at a rare original 4X4 model with some interesting modifications and upgrades. Under the hood, it's running a 350 Chevy 4-bolt main engine, not original but a solid upgrade, paired with a 4-speed manual transmission with that beloved granny gear for serious low-end torque. The drivetrain's been built for business with Warn hubs and Posey traction front and rear. That's serious 4X4 capability right there. What makes this truck particularly interesting is the custom extended cab modification, not something you see often on these 60s models. It's got the desirable pig nose hood and custom cab package with chrome grille and bumpers, which adds some nice period-correct flair. Some modern conveniences have been added, like the tilt wheel and overhead console. There are new gauges that need to be hooked up, so factor that into your plans. The seller claims excellent condition, though with any 63-year-old truck, you'll want to verify everything in person. At $12,500, considering the rarity of an original 4X4 from this era and the useful upgrades, this could be a solid deal for someone looking for a unique classic that can still work hard. The combination of vintage charm with practical upgrades makes this an interesting piece. 14. Let me be straight up about this 1977 Chevy 4X4 that's listed for $4,000. The seller's keeping it real with a fair condition rating and not trying to oversell it. This is definitely a project truck that's seen its share of miles with that 289,615 showing on the odometer. They're marketing it as a winter toy, which suggests it might be more of a fun beater than a showpiece. At $4,000, that's exactly the kind of price point where you could get a functional 4X4 that you wouldn't feel bad about getting muddy or scratched up on the trails. These 77s typically came with either a 350 or 400 V8 paired with an automatic transmission, and the 4X4 system on these square bodies is pretty bulletproof when maintained. However, with such a brief description, you'll definitely want to check all the usual trouble spots. Rust in the cab corners, floor pans, and frame, plus the condition of the 4X4 components. For $4,000, you're looking at an entry-level classic 4X4 that could be either a fun winter project or a basis for a more serious build. Just don't expect a cream puff at this price point. This is a worker that's earned its battle scars. 15. Let me tell you about this 1977 Ford F-150 that's up for grabs at $13,000. Being a California truck is a huge plus right off the bat. That usually means less rust and better overall preservation compared to trucks from harsher climates. The powertrain combo here is pretty desirable. You're getting the robust 351 V8 paired with a 4-speed manual transmission and 4x4 capability. That's a sweet setup for both work and play. The sellers had it for 7 years, which suggests they're familiar with its quirks and maintenance history. With 65,000 miles showing, it's relatively low mileage for a truck of this vintage, though as always with older vehicles, verify the accuracy. The seller's honest about the paint having some fading, which is pretty common for these old Fords, especially if it's been in the California sun. At $13,000, you're in the ballpark for a solid 77 F-154 X4, especially considering it's a California truck with the desirable 351 4-speed combo. These trucks are gaining popularity among collectors, but they're still capable workhorses when properly maintained. The seller's straightforward approach and long-term ownership suggest this could be a well-cared-for example of these beloved classic Fords. Just factor in some cosmetic work if you're bothered by the faded paint. 16. Let me tell you about this gorgeous 1946 Studebaker pickup that's available for $27,000. These are seriously rare birds, and this one sounds like it's been given lots of love over the years. The seller's being transparent about their decade-long ownership, and the truck has an interesting history. It was previously restored by their friend who clearly put significant investment into it. What makes this particularly special is that 46 was right after World War II when Studebaker resumed civilian vehicle production, making these trucks historically significant. The recent work is impressive. Fresh paint in green and new brakes are always good to see. The interior's been done up nicely with tan leather seating, which is definitely an upgrade from the original vinyl or cloth. It's running the original style setup with a 6-cylinder engine and 3-speed manual transmission with floor shift, paired with drum brakes all around. So expect a pure, vintage driving experience. The seller's honest about the non-original rear bumper, but notes it's functional for towing, which adds some practical utility. The 57,475 miles showing could be original given the condition described, though with vehicles this old, mileage is less important than overall condition. At $27,000, you're looking at a well-preserved piece of American automotive history. These Studebaker pickups have a unique style that stands out from the more common Ford and Chevy trucks of the era. Plus, they're getting harder to find, especially in this condition. 17. Let me tell you about this 1975 Chevrolet K5 Blazer that's up for $10,000. First off, the seller gets points for honesty. They're upfront about this being a project vehicle and aren't trying to oversell it. Being a 75 model makes this particularly interesting as it's the last year of the full convertible top design, which many collectors specifically seek out. The seller's done some essential mechanical work to keep it running. Rebuilt carb, new brake lines and pads, fresh fuel pump and gas tank, plus new tires. That's a good start. But let's be real about the elephant in the room. That driver's side Bondo situation is a red flag. When a seller admits they're not entirely sure what's underneath, you should definitely plan on some bodywork discoveries. The 67,000 miles showing is less relevant here given the project status. While the body is reportedly decent in terms of rust overall, that mystery Bondo repair needs investigation. The included but not installed window rubber seals are a nice bonus for the eventual restoration. At $10,000, you're buying a running and driving project with some question marks. These K5s are climbing in value, especially the convertible top years, but you'll want to factor in potential bodywork costs. The out-of-state registration from Louisiana isn't a deal breaker, but something to consider in your paperwork planning. 18. We're checking out this absolutely classic 1980 GMC Sierra listed for $12,500. This isn't your grandpa's stock pickup anymore. We're looking at a serious build with some impressive upgrades. The heart of this beast is a 6.0 LLQ4 V8. That's modern GM power in this vintage body. It's running with a painless wiring harness for reliability, and power gets to the ground through an SM465 4-speed manual transmission paired with an NP205 transfer case. For the hardcore off-roaders, the seller mentions it can even come with an NV4500 transmission if you prefer. This Sierra is built for the rough stuff with 8-bolt axles, a plated steering box for durability, and fresh leaf springs. The LED headlights bring modern lighting to this classic truck, and those tires are practically brand new, at 95% tread remaining. The odometer shows just 1,500 miles, which is almost certainly since the rebuild, restoration, rather than original miles. The title is clean, and the seller's open to cryptocurrency, trades, and even delivery options if you're not local. Is $12,500 fair? For a properly built classic Sierra with these upgrades, it's actually in the ballpark. The price is negotiable too, so there might be room to work a deal that makes both parties happy. 19. We're checking out this incredible piece of American history. A 1967 Chevy C10 short bed that's asking $26,000. This isn't your average C10 build. We're looking at a largely original California truck with some seriously desirable factory options. First off, this is a factory short bed configuration with the big rear window option, both highly sought after in the classic truck world. It's rocking its original vermilion red paint, and while the seller honestly admits it has some dings and minor dents, there's no Bondo or filler hiding underneath. Remember folks, they're only original once. Under the hood sits a 327 V8 with double hump heads and an Edelbrock 650 carb, a sweet period-correct power plant that's pushing power through a Powerglide automatic transmission to a rear end with 3.73 gears. The Flowmaster dual exhaust must give this thing a fantastic rumble. The interior features the desirable buddy bucket seat configuration, and the factory oak bed has been refinished. Being a California Central Valley truck means this C10 likely avoided the rust issues that plague many of these classics. One of the rarest features? Factory air conditioning. That's uncommon on these trucks and adds significant value. The odometer shows 72,000 miles, which might be original, but the seller can't confirm. It has current tags and a clean title in the seller's name. 20. We're looking at a serious piece of blue oval history. A 1978 Ford F-150 Ranger short bed 4x4 that's listed for $25,000. This isn't just any old Ford truck. We're talking about a rare California-kept two-owner example that's been given some serious love. The heart of this beast is a freshly rebuilt 351 MV8 that's been professionally hopped up by Capestran racing engines. They've installed a thumper camshaft, you know it sounds nasty, Edelbrock Performer 400 intake, and a 650 CFM Edelbrock AVS2 carb with electric choke. But that's not all. This thing's running TrickFlow aluminum cylinder heads, Headman long tube headers, and a dual Flowmaster 40 series exhaust system. This old Ford definitely has some serious bark. Drivetrain-wise, you're looking at a 4-speed manual transmission with 4 WD and locking wheel hubs, the perfect combo for a proper work-and-play truck. The seller mentions it runs strong, which I'd expect with all those engine upgrades. The body appears to be in great shape with hardly any rust. A miracle for a 45-year-old truck. It's sitting on a brand new 4-inch suspension lift, no blocks, with 15-inch chrome wheels wrapped in BF Goodrich tires. The green paint does need a refresh according to the seller, but that gives you a chance to make it your own. Inside, you're getting a completely original interior, a huge plus for collectors who appreciate originality. The odometer shows 1,978 miles, which is almost certainly rolled over at least once.